Hi, my name is Aaron, and I'm with Fleetistics, and today we're going to be talking about things that you need to take into consideration when introducing dash cams to your drivers. So to do this, what I did was I surveyed the team and said, hey, give me 3 items or so that I can share with people online that they should take into consideration when introducing dash cams to drivers. The team has probably close to 100 years of experience in telematics and GPS, and since dash cams haven't been around that long, then the experience is not quite that. But everybody's been in the industry for 10 plus years, so we've done a lot of dash cams, and we've dealt with a lot of different situations, a lot of different companies, a lot of different company cultures, a lot of different industries, and things of that nature. So let's run through the feedback that we received, and you can take it and use it, or come up with your own plan. But this is what was recommended to me to provide to you. So Lynn said the in-cab view is for drivers' protection. It's not to micromanage. It is to absolve them of accusations of wrongdoing if something were to go wrong. And you know how it is. If you get in an accident, well, was he on his phone? All right, now we're going to subpoena the phone. We're going to go through the phone. We're going to go through the phone records. But if the inward-facing camera simply showed that he wasn't on the phone at the time of the accident, then it's a moot point, right? So it helps protect the drivers. Secondly, define how the camera data may or may not be used. What are you going to do with it, right? Is this to spy on people? Is it to try to punish people? Ultimately, we all know at the end of the day, you need to make it a positive, right? You want to coach the driving behaviors that you want, and you want to do that through positive reinforcement, which came up in some other suggestions as well. The last thing that Lynn said, video can be helpful to share conditions on a job site with management or to verify that you were there. So this is interesting, and Lynn has a customer that actually does this. She has a customer who, when they arrive, they actually turn the vehicle off. So the ignition's off, but they wire the camera to stay on. Right? So typically your camera would power down when your ignition goes off to preserve the battery, but they have big trucks and they have other trades that are coming by and delivering content, and they want to make sure that those trades are coming by, and they want to capture those trades coming by on the camera. So if there's ever any dispute about, hey, you didn't bring us whatever it is, I don't know if it's sand or concrete or whatever it is, hey, we can go back and we can look at the video footage and we can understand whether or not that got done or not. So we know if we should be paying invoices and if we got shortchanged, or do we get what we actually paid for. So those were Lynn's suggestions. Next is John. John said, provide the dash cam in a manner that is aligned with safety awareness, right? So everybody's got to have safety on their mind. And if you use it as a safety tool, i.e. we're going to get better at what we do, which is driving, since service and delivery companies are on the road all the time, we're going to align that with other safety things that we do. This is one tool in the tool belt in a safety program. Next, he said, provide the employees with understanding of how the technology will help with their own driving behaviors and protect their personal interests. So we've got two pieces there, right? Own driving behaviors. A lot of people come to you, you don't know where they're from, you don't know who taught them how to drive. You've probably run their driving record to make sure they're not completely reckless, but they may have driving habits that still aren't great, right? Maybe they're lucky and they've just been avoiding accidents. And, this type of video, in conjunction really with telematics, where you're getting accelerometer information, kind of see if someone's a swervy driver or a harsh braker or harsh, they do a lot of harsh cornering. You can kind of put the puzzle pieces together to determine whether or not somebody might need a little additional attention or some additional coaching to improve their driving behaviors. We've all driven down the road and said, oh my goodness, what is that person doing? They're a terrible driver. Well, that guy or gal could be your driver when they're not at work, or they could be your driver at work in your vehicle. You just don't know it because you've had no visibility prior to this. And then how does this protect their personal interests, right? At the end of the day, everybody wants to come to work. They want a good place to go to work. They want a nice environment, but they're there to make money, right? And provide for their families and for their own personal interests. So by having a good, safe fleet, it ensures that they can come to work, they have a vehicle to drive, they have a profitable business, which a healthy business should be taking care of the employees, and ultimately, it's for their physical safety as well. Next, John said, provide an understanding of how the dash cam protects the business and its interests. All right, so we kind of talked about that. The interests of the business also include insurance, and fleet insurance is one of the biggest expenses that a company has, especially once you start getting into the accident world. And the bigger the trucks you have, the more expensive the accidents, the more people get hurt in an accident, things like that. So you can explain how important it is for the fleet to be safe, and every single person's actions impact the business and the interest of the business. All right, next was Elliot. He said, be upfront and clear on the purpose and the intention. Right, we kind of talked about that. You don't want to be covert about this. You really can't be covert about dash cams, right? It'd be very hard. In the GPS tracking business, it was all, early on, it was about, hey, let's be covert. Let me catch my guys, see what they're doing, establish this baseline of bad behavior, and then we're going to correct that behavior and move on to, making all these great changes. That's not going to happen with dash cams. They know it's there. It's on the windshield, right? Can't hide that. So, be upfront and talk about, hey, we're doing it, and we're doing it for these reasons. So know the functions of the camera so drivers can understand the general capabilities. All right, so there are quite a few differences in cameras and camera capabilities, right? Some cameras have AI built in them, and they can detect a seatbelt being worn. They can tell if you're yawning, if you're not looking ahead. Even if you have sunglasses on, a lot of times they can see if your eyes are closing for an extended period of time. That technology is not perfect, don't get me wrong, but it works a percentage of the time, and it can help paint a picture of certain types of behaviors that are important to overall safety. So understand the capabilities and then let them know, hey, this is the type of thing that this camera can do. All right, next, explain dash cams are not going to solve or prevent accidents overnight, right? This is not a silver bullet of some sort, but in the long run, it's going to improve safety, and you're going to improve the averages or the likelihood of not having as many accidents over the course of 100,000 miles or 1,000,000 miles, something of that nature. So doesn't mean that you're not going to have accidents, because everybody will, but it's going to reduce the number of accidents, and it'll reduce the severity of accidents, hopefully, because everybody's more safety aware. And, the other thing I'm going to throw into this is, just because you're putting dash cameras in and people are staying more focused, you have to allow for changes in driving behavior too. You may have a really tight schedule where you've got someone doing 25, 35 stops a day. And once they're forced to slow down and follow certain routes based on routing software and things like that, you may not be able to get quite as many stops in per day, right? So think about that when everybody's, maybe the drivers are saying, hey, boss, I can't do it. I got a speed to get there. The schedule's too tight. Right. So then you can look at the GPS data and you can say, okay, well, I can see you are speeding and you aren't getting off route. So maybe we need to drop a stop or two off the end of your day and move it to another day, which may be a little bit lighter. And, you guys work together to average out the routes so everybody can, follow the rules. All right. Next, it says, you have a right to be apprehensive. And this is you talking to the drivers, right? Hey, I understand you have reservations about this. But understand that we have security cameras in the building, right, that are looking, in the offices and monitoring what's going on inside. We have security cameras outside. We have computer monitoring technology, so we can monitor what's going on in the computers. This is another tool in the tool belt to have the oversight necessary to run a business, because you don't always know who you have and everybody's, intentions, right? Even good people stray every now and then, need to kind of get reeled back in. So one of the things that you can do, and I'm adding this to Elliot's comment, is you can lead by example. And this has been something that I saw early on back in the 90s when I got into the GPS tracking business. And it worked beautifully, which is everybody gets the technology, right? It doesn't matter if it's GPS or dash cams or whatever. If you're driving a company asset, you get the technology. And then when you present it to the drivers and say, hey, guess what? Here you go. We've got dash cams. What are they going to say if you've already got a dash cam installed in your vehicle and all the managers' vehicles, right? That's just the way it goes. It removes any argument that they can have about this if you guys are all in the same boat under the same rules. And last, have a reward system, not a demerit system, which is a great point. You want to focus on the positive. You don't have to tell someone that they goofed up. The system could beep at them, or it creates an alert and you have a side conversation with them, something of that nature, or maybe it's tied into a training application. So, if certain things happen, they automatically get signed a training module, which is a great way of taking that next step towards improving the safety culture. But focusing on a reward. So, hey, look, this week we're going to try to reduce the number of distracted driving alerts that we get. And if we do that, then we're going to have, a social after work or something like that. Hey, we're gonna get donuts and coffee for everybody or something of that nature. So it's any type of positive reinforcement, and you can also do that on the individual level as well. What are we going to do for the driver that gets the best overall performance? So hey, keep that up. Try to be like that guy. And if you're on the bottom of that list, you know it already. It's going to happen. They know. You don't have to tell a driver if he's on the bottom of the list. He knows. All right, next. This is from Brandon. It's just like any other policy that a company has in place. Companies are driven by policies, hopefully, and we all have rules to follow. The policies outline the rules. Have a written policy that is distributed and discussed with your drivers so they know what the expectations are. There is no excuse for hanging an air freshener over it, constantly keeping putting the visor down in front of it, giving it a little tap so it moves up or something like that, putting a piece of tape over it. None of that's acceptable because you have a written policy that you've already explained and gone over with everybody, right? Next, the benefit would be data that can be explain a situation in video format. So I think what Brandon's saying there, hey, look, you could describe an accident all day long. You can look at some skid marks. You can look at the telematics data. But when you look at it in video format, it's clear, right? We can all look at accident video online, and you can see that vehicle pulled out in front, or that vehicle merged into the side of your company vehicle, and that is what caused the accident. Now, a lot of companies, not companies, but individuals, especially here in the state of Florida, which is the insurance abuse capital of the world, I think, they'll actually pull in front of a truck and hit the brakes and then claim the truck rear-ended them. Right, so they get whiplash. All of a sudden, they got back problems. Now there are all kinds of lawsuits. And without a dash cam, it's your word against theirs. So the injury attorneys will run that through the ringer. They'll shake down the insurance company, and eventually it gets settled somewhere along the way. But who wants to go through that process? Get a dash cam, right? And go to your insurance company and say, hey, if I get these, can I get a discount? Maybe the discount will be enough to cover the dash cams, or at least half of it or something. And split that investment because it protects you both, right? Next is don't touch it, its recording. So tell the drivers, hey, hands off. If you think it's not working, you have to let me know. Every day that you get in, you should see these lights. If you don't see those lights, you got to let me know. We're going to be checking as well, but it's better that you let me know than me find out a day or two later through routine inspection, and I'm wondering whether or not you had something to do with it. So first off, hands off, and let us know if there's a problem. Next, you have to decide if you're going to record the audio. You can turn it on or off. I would say 99% of our customers do not record audio. You really don't need to know what someone's talking about when they're talking to their wife or their spouse or whatever. They may be talking about making a phone call about banking information or something, hands-free, of course, but something of that nature. You don't want the liability of having that information, right? So let them know that, like, hey, we're gonna go audio off on this system unless you have a particular reason why it should be on. And then last is Kim, and Kim's been in our industry for over 21 years as well, as long as I have. And she says, hey, just let them know it's there for their own safety. It's not Big Brother. It's an additional tool to benchmark for employees, i.e. KPIs and performance rewards and things of that nature. Next is accountability of employees in regards to company policies. Are you adhering to the policies that we've established? When you come here to work, you're agreeing to adhere to our policies, not create your own, right? And next is that video can exonerate an employee that's not his fault. So again, we talked about that. Somebody accuses you of being distracted, maybe accuses you of rear-ending them, and whatever the case is, the video can save them a lot of hassle. And just a real quick story, we had a customer that actually had 2 fatalities, and they were within a relatively short period of time, and they didn't have dash cams. Dash cams really weren't a thing back then, but one of them ran a red light and T-boned somebody, And the other one was somebody stepped out in front of one of their vans from behind a vehicle and they got run over. So it was not quite clear as to whether or not that particular person was committing suicide or not, but the legal liability was so great that it was a company of over 100 vehicles. They actually closed their doors shortly thereafter because of the lawsuits. So, maybe they weren't properly insured, but, it is what it is. So there you go. There's some good information for you. Take that information and contact us if you are interested in dash cams. If you've already got dash cams, hey, that's great. Keep us in mind, down the road. We do offer 2 flavors of dash cams. One is the more advanced, dash cam, more for operations. Maybe it has AI, maybe it doesn't. We've got different options there. But we do have a very unique dash cam program, which is for insurance applications only. So, and this is another way to reduce the anxiety of your drivers, by the way. And this is one of the reasons why we developed it. You guys install the dash cams, but we don't actually give you access to them, right? So you can't be accused of sitting there spying on your drivers if you don't even have access to the interface. If you need a video clip because there's an incident or something suspicious, you contact us, we download the video, and we send you a link so you can view the video yourself. And the great part about that program is you only pay for the video that you actually download. There's a small monthly maintenance fee that you pay, which is way less than what you're used to paying, and then you pay per megabyte for every video clip that you want. So if you don't actually request any videos for that month, you just pay the small maintenance fee. And it eliminates a ton of problems. It's great for unions that are concerned about these same things of management spying on them all the time. It just doesn't happen with our insurance program. So give us a call at Fleetistics, 855-300-0527, and good luck with your implementation. If you've got questions or comments, please post them below, and we'll see you on the next video. Have a great day.